Hey, what up, world? So I wanted to do a part two to standards versus feelings, right? Because I think a big factor of it is also the ego, and that's something else I wanted to discuss. Some people let their feelings overtake their standards because of the ego. They let their ego get in the way and they get emotional instead of holding themselves to a standard, you know, or like let's say um, they receive some criticism and it's some constructive criticism, but they take offense to that because they're more concerned with their feelings than they are with the standard. If you're more concerned with becoming better, you're focusing on a standard. You want to improve, you want to be better, so you should invite constructive criticism. But if you're living within your ego, if all you hear is um, comments damaging or attacks on your ego, you're in your feelings. And if you're in your feelings, you're not in your standards. You're not living up to your standards. You're not living up to a standard, you know? So you're self-sabotaging. And that's what this is about, yo. Like, you gotta learn how to always be growing, always be improving, always getting better. That's what this is. It's either you're going up or you're going down. If you're focusing on your ego and your feelings, you're going down. You're not improving. You're not being your best self. You understand me? There's a lot of people out here that limit their success because of their ego. I mean, there's a lot of people that sabotage their careers and opportunities and relationships because of their egos. And their feelings. They're letting their feelings take charge, but they should be, you have to be humble. If you want to be a leader, you have to be humble, yo. If you want to lead people, you have to set a standard for yourself to constantly improve. And not just other people, but lead yourself. If you want to lead yourself to be becoming better, you have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to learn. You have to realize your weaknesses and then find out how to improve. So you have to put your feelings to the side. One thing I've learned in the last couple of weeks, I've been learning about coding, right? I've been getting AI to teach me about coding so I can build websites and things of that nature, right? And HTML and all that. And one thing I learned is not to include my feelings in the result. There's a lot of times we tell ourselves stories about an outcome or a result, and when it's a code, when you put in a code, either it works or it doesn't. So you just rework the code, and that's what it's all about. That's what life should be more about. But we have these stories and we have these feelings, and we're not focused on the standard. We're not focused on the goal of improving. And that's what a standard is, the goal of improving. Like, you will not allow anything less than this. Like, this is the standard, and my standard is I have to accomplish the set goal, and that's a goal for this code. You write your life, you write your story. What is your story? Is your story, all things never work for me, this is a failure, this is there's no hope, why bother trying? What is your story? What is your what kind of code are you writing? Like, why is it not working? Why is the code not working? Don't get emotional about this shit. Don't get in your feelings about this shit. Just keep reworking the code. Try something else. This don't work, try this, try that. And I think I've learned a beautiful lesson from that. And it's like, I don't get frustrated, but I'm looking at other scenarios in life where I do get frustrated because I tried so many times, but it's because of the story I told myself. Just like the other jewel that I had the other day, it really boils down to the stories. Like, what stories? The big and the small. You know, it could be something small, but it's big in your mind because of the story you told yourself. But if you like limit it to the thing, limit it like, no, it's just this small piece of the equation. Let me rework this. Let me rework that. It's just a stub toe. You know, it's not the whole chain of events before it. You know, you got to be able to separate the big from the small, and you got to be able to separate your feelings from your standards. You know what I mean? Don't get emotional. Emotions carry so much mental weight, you know. And I think with metaphysics and power of the mind is that we don't see the physical shape and size and weight and mass of what we're carrying around, our thoughts that we carry around every day. You know what I mean? And there's so much weight to it. We carry so many, like, people, you know, every single day is carrying fucking mountains on their back. You don't know the thoughts that go through their head. You know, you don't know how much they have to endure. They keep, and like Buddha said, like, pain is part of life, but suffering is a choice. You know, not slavery a choice, suffering's a choice. You know, and that's because how you choose to think about a situation causes you to suffer or not, right? Like that book with by Viktor Frankl about being in concentration camps and the Holocaust. The way they survived was choosing not to suffer. They used their mind to think of positive things so they could survive such a horrific tragedy. Living in the midst of a tragedy every single day. A series of tragedies for a long period of time, for years. I mean, same with slavery, yo. Like, you would have the slaves. They would sing songs. Why would they sing songs? So they're not focused on the suffering. You know, they're not choosing to. They're choosing not to suffer. You know, even though this condition is gonna cause them pain. You know, like, suffering is a choice. You know, like, you gotta understand the difference between pain and suffering. And that's a whole nother jewel I could make up of. You know, but point being with this, I wanted to expand on the point of standards and feelings. You know, like, don't get in your feelings. Acknowledge them, recognize where they're coming from, what triggers them, and what they mean. You know, where are they coming from and what they mean. You have to decipher that shit. You have to understand that. Like, I had a conversation earlier today, and I really had to sit down and understand why I felt the way I did, where it was coming from, before I responded to them and responded to the situation. You know, like, if I reacted based off of my feelings, I would have crashed out, or would have made things worse, and it would have been ugly. You know, but because I was able to understand it, figure it out, realize where it was coming from, I was able to put it in context, explain it beautifully, and it worked out beautifully, and it came to a great understanding between me and the person. You know, and that's what life should be about. You know, self-discovery, and also being having empathy for yourself and the person, the people you deal with. You know, and that's what it comes down to. And that's, like, if those are the feelings, that's good. Empathy, you know what I mean? Understanding. But that's a standard. That's also a standard. It's not these feelings of negativity. It's not about your ego. It's not about reacting. It's about deciphering, understanding, and then responding. You know, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Yo, you gotta understand that motherfucking shit. Yo, you gotta break that shit down. You gotta know what you're talking about. Know what you're doing. You gotta use wisdom, and then you gotta understand it, and then you can spread the understanding. You know, but peace, love. Separate the standards from your feelings. Don't be in your feelings. Don't be a crash out dummy. Peace and love. Prophet Jules.